let's keep moving. We spent a fair amount of time last week looking at chapters 25 and 26 in Exodus, particularly looking at the structure and layout of the temple, or rather the tabernacle, and kind of where all of these things fit and why and how and all kinds of stuff. We have a little bit left on that. And then we start to get into the next section here in chapter 28. So let me read a little bit here. You shall make the altar of acacia wood, 5 cubits long and 5 cubits broad. The altar shall be square, and its height shall be 3 cubits. You shall make horns for it on its 4 corners. Its horns shall be one piece with it, and you shall overlay it with bronze. You shall make pots for it to receive its ashes, and shovels and basins and forks and fire pans. You shall make all its utensils of bronze. So first of all, this altar is square, not a rectangle. When we think of altars, we usually think of them on one end. And in recent years, we've kind of pulled them away from the wall, but still rectangular-ish, I would say. But this one is square, 5 cubits long, so it's 7.5 feet square. So that's pretty good size altar there. And then on the 4 corners, it has these horns for it. And I don't know if you ever heard of that expression, the horns of the altar. We don't have physical horns on our altar. Of course, our altar isn't an altar quite in the same way as this is. I don't remember us doing any animal sacrifices on our altar of late. I think the altar guild would probably lynch me if I tried that. And they would be right to do so, to be fair. So, kind of where we have a leftover of this horns of the altar is how we do the readings. And that is on the one horn of the altar. If you're facing, let's imagine that this table here is the altar. Right here is where the elder reads the Old Testament and the epistle. This is called the epistle horn of the altar. And then I read the gospel from here. So what do you think this one's called? You guys are sharp. This is the gospel horn of the altar. That practice is specifically for the divine service, for communion services. That practice of kind of using the different horns of the altar, that has almost nothing to do with what is here, except for it's an altar and there are horns to the altar. I mean, this is not connected to readings per se at all here. So we're 7.5 feet square. How tall was it? 3 cubits, so 4.5 feet tall. So that's pretty good height. Remember, I don't know if you remember this or not, I think I told you I was having a hard time reading the altar book a while back, and I had 2 problems with it. The first problem was I figured out that this altar is 6 inches shorter than the altar in Wisconsin. So the book was literally 6 inches farther away. But more importantly was the problem that I was wearing my daughter's contacts. So I had a couple Sundays where I really thought I was losing it. But, those readings were a little more loosely interpreted than normal.
We called it back.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy.
It's just not working. They're like, we looked in your file and we realized we ordered Renatas for it. Oh!
Yeah. Renata does not have bifocal contacts. So there you go.
It wasn't the best couple.
It was not the best combination. But let's move on, shall we? You shall also make for it a grating, a network of bronze, and on the net you shall make 4 bronze rings at its 4 corners. And you shall set it under the ledge of the altar so that the net extends halfway down the altar. You shall make poles for the altar. poles of acacia wood and overlay them with bronze. The poles shall be put through the ring so that the poles are on the two sides of the altar when it is carried. You shall make it hollow with boards, as it is shown you on the mountain, so shall it be made. So this is a frame. Okay? It is a frame. It is hollow on the inside, and it's got this net. And if I recall, the net itself is like a grate that goes on the inside so that they can put the fire underneath the altar, and then put the sacrifice on top of the grate. Does that make sense? Okay. And of course, it is bronze so that the net doesn't burn up, because that would be counterproductive. Is everybody with me? Okay. And why does it have the poles again? To carry it, because this whole thing has to be able to be picked up and moved, not quite at a moment's notice, but it needs to be able to move in fairly easily. Oh, and one other thing on this altar, and then I'll get to Dennis, and that is, where physically is the altar? Do you remember? It's outside. This is not in the Holy of Holies. This is not the altar of incense, which is inside. This is the altar of burnt offering, which is outside of the building structure proper. So, you had that whole building thing, and then you had those walls around the outside of it. So this is in kind of the courtyard. That's where this altar is. Now, Dennis, what was your question?
Can you back up?
Yep.
Very last line.
As it has been shown you on the mountain, so shall it be made.
Diagrams, drawings, pictures?
I don't know. That is a great question. I'm sure that would have been very convenient for them. I find it very unlikely, unless we're talking about a vision. But this is the only reference you get to this. There is no vision language. Like you see in Ezekiel or in Revelation, you get all of these visions of heaven and of the temple and all this kind of stuff. I don't remember there being a vision of the tabernacle. So I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm also happy to be informed. And Rick is just the guy to do it. Talk to me.
25:9, exactly as I show you concerning the pattern of the tabernacle and all its furniture, so you can make it. The note says, and the same thing. The Lord showed Moses patterns or models to guide their work.
Well, I think that's a pious guess on the part of the commentator there. And it may be right. I mean, it does sound like that with show. Show is not the same as tell. So that, but I still think that's a guess. Probably a good guess, but it is a guess. All right. Verse 9. You shall make the court of the tabernacle. On the south side, the court shall have the hangings of fine twined linen, 100 cubits long for one side. So 150 feet long. Its 20 pillars and their 20 bases shall be of bronze, but the hooks of the pillars and their fillets shall be of silver. Likewise, for its length on the north side, there shall be hangings 100 cubits long, its pillars 20, and their bases 20 of bronze. But the hooks of the pillars and their fillets shall be of silver. You remember last week we looked at that image of the temple and of the tabernacle and of the temples, and kind of the floor plans of the various ones. So the outer court, which really is the whole thing kind of put together, is 150 feet long. What's something that would be 150 feet long that we would have kind of a good idea of? Half a football field. Okay. So that'll give us a good idea, 50 yards, basically. Okay. All right. And for the breadth of the court on the west side, there shall be hangings for 50 cubits, 10 linen bases. Breadth of the court on the front to the east shall be 50 cubits. The hangings for the one side of the gate shall be 15 cubits, with their 3 pillars and 3 bases. On the other side, the hangings shall be 15 cubits, with their 3 pillars and 3 bases. For the gate of the court there shall be a screen 20 cubits long, of blue and purple and scarlet yarns, and fine twined linen embroidered with needlework. It shall have 4 pillars, and with them 4 bases. So, it's 150 feet long, and how wide is it? 75 feet wide. Okay, so it's kind of a 2 to 1 ratio rectangle. And then we have an opening on one side, these hangings. Have we seen how tall the hangings are? Have they said that? I don't think so either. All the pillars around the court shall be filleted with silver. Their hooks shall be of silver, their bases of bronze. The length of the court shall be 100 cubits, its breadth 50, and its height 5 cubits. There you go. So 7.5 feet tall. With hangings of fine twined linen and bases of bronze, all the utensils of the tabernacle for every use, and all its pegs and all the pegs of the court shall be of bronze. Bronze, interestingly enough, was more associated with weapons and war than it was with royalty. I mean, we definitely have the kind of the royalty kingship stuff with the gold and silver, but bronze would much more be, it's a harder and would be much more associated with weapons. But here, all of these utensils are made out of bronze. It's very interesting. These are their weapons. It's prayer. Not interesting? Any questions? Yes, Catherine.
Well, something that, I'm noticing with this, and just like with the art that you were showing at the beginning with the kids,
Yes.
one of the things that I sometimes feel like we underutilize is that theological voice of artists and how God uses these,
Right.
making these things out of bronze. I'm sure was not an easy thing.
No.
There was this theological force of these bronze workers,
Right.
and how God is able to use all these different things to, again, proclaim His.
Right.
His
Right.
word. And just like in the ark, obviously it's not like we really believe the ark was in the middle of the Jordan River,
Right.
but how that artist is able to bring those things together.
This artist on the left, by the way, isn't this a great painting? It's awesome. This artist is a man named Ed Riojas, Riojas. He is an artist, lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He's actually the editorial cartoonist for the newspaper there. But he's Lutheran, and he has done all kinds of art for churches, largely in the Michigan, but not exclusively so. This is actually a commissioned piece. This is one part of it that he has made for the seminary in Fort Wayne for their new library expansion. So this is actually a photograph of it that I took when I was there back in January, and he has a great talent for kind of getting these theological connections and doing it in a really, really subtle way, so that you could be looking at that painting for a long time and not see that arc, which I think is pretty cool.
Pastor, up above, the dove, is that the hand of God?
Yeah. Yep. This is the handed blessing kind of coming down. All right. Back to our regularly scheduled program. There we are. That's where we connect with the court. And we did that. All right. All the pillars around the court shall be filleted with silver. Their hooks shall be of silver. Their bases of bronze. The length of the court shall be 100 cubits, breadth 50, height 5, with hangings of fine twined linen and bases of bronze. All the utensils of the tabernacle for every use, all its pegs and all the pegs of the court shall be of bronze. You shall command the people of Israel that they bring to you pure beaten olive oil for the light, that a lamp may regularly be set up to burn. In the tent of meeting outside the veil, that is before the testimony, Aaron and his sons shall tend it from evening to morning before the Lord. It shall be a statute forever to be observed throughout their generations by the people of Israel. So there was this lamp and lampstand. This is not the menorah candle, but there was this lamp that they kept burned every night. So it didn't burn 24 hours, it burned at nighttime. And this was one of the jobs of the priests, was to tend to the light, was to take care of the lamp, basically, and keep it burning, which means make sure that the oil stays trimmed and full. Yeah, Ben.
And I was curious, with the lamp, that specific lamp, would that be kind of like the golden lampstand that is kind of portrayed everywhere else?
That is exactly the golden lampstand that is in the tabernacle. Yep. So yeah, and we'll kind of get more a little bit later on what the point of that lamp is. But this is one of the things that is very different about the priesthood of Aaron. That this priesthood, frankly, their duties were very, very mundane. Okay, you're going to be the high priest. What's your job? You're going to kill a whole bunch of animals and burn them on an altar. You're a priest. What's your job? You're going to stay up all night looking at a candle. But these tasks, which they were given, were not some sort of big, miraculous, special, amazing thing that they were to do. They were very earthly, very mundane, very normal, common. They were very, very common. And it is through those common things that uncommon things happen, that God's blessings come down upon these people. So it's very interesting kind of distinction there. Art and then Gloria.
Do they keep it set forever? Because it says that it's supposed to be observed forever throughout.
Well, we get that phrase a number of places. The first place I remember, I'm sure that there are others, but the first place I remember that is at the Passover. That that they are to keep the Passover forever for all generations. And which raises a sort of interesting question for us, which is what? Why are we doing it? Well, what's your answer? What do you think? Christ is the fulfillment of this. It is not an accident that we say Jesus Christ is the light of the world, or that he is our Passover lamb, that he is the paschal lamb that sets us free, etc. That all of these things in the tabernacle find their fulfillment in Christ. And fulfillment really means completion, perfection. They found their completion in Christ. This is really what the book of Hebrews is about. Is all of this. I just gave you an idea. But Gloria and Walt.
Just on the picture on 139,
Okay?
I was just wondering what that would be, because I don't see it.
All right, 139. Let me pull it up. Let's see if I agree. You know, I repent. Will you just make me repent a lot? I think that the lampstand is the menorah. I don't know why I was getting in my head that that was a different thing. All right. See, this is what you guys catch me for. I meant to do that. All right. Did you have a question, Paul?
What, isn't alcohol kind of smoky? Yeah. We're not running stuff with
I
olive
have
oil.
not burnt olive oil recently, so I can't do that.
I've never tried to light a candle or a wick with olive oil.
I haven't either.
The notice again specifically says that's one of the reasons it's pure beaten olive oil because there's less smoke. Pure oil that burns brightly with little smoke.
There you have it.
Smokeless.
Pressed, that's what my guess is that I'd be pressed and not.
Similar to water virgin oil,
Right,
fresh from the
fresh.
fresh olives rather than rinsed out by hot water. This happens when the olives are crushed a second time. That's not me, I just wrote
There you go. They got it all right there. Are you ready? This just makes me think of Tenuda's. Not Tenuda's, the winery, but in Wisconsin we had an Italian grocery store. You know, it's an Italian grocery store when there's an aisle of gallon-sized jugs of olive oil. Just olive oil. So, now, Barbara.
It's a good thought about the commons, because the common things that we do as Christians show God's love to others. Our vocations, the things we do, so ordinary things we do in life to serve God.
Yeah, that is a very, very good point, Barbara. Thank you. That is that the common things that we do are sanctified by God, are made holy by God, so that everything that we do, this is what Moses means, what God/Moses means in chapter 19 when he calls them a kingdom of priests. That is, everything that they do is sacrificial, is for the sake of the world. Even the common things. Now, just like there, they had certain people that were given to do specific things. That doesn't make other things less important. That means that different people have different vocations. Yeah, very good point. Thank you very much. All right. Then, chapter 28. See, we finished the chapter. Then bring near to you Aaron, your brother, and his sons with him from among the people of Israel, to serve me as priests. Aaron and Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. And you shall make holy garments for Aaron, your brother, for glory and for beauty. What tribe was Moses and Aaron from? Levi. Yeah, they were from the tribe of Levi. So we have within the tribe of Levi a sort of a subset of the tribe of Levi that are the priests. So in Jesus' day, the priests come from the tribe from Aaron, from that line in the tribe of Levi, and then the rest of the tribe of Levi kind of serve the priests within that. So if you were to look at a map of Israel, there is no, you know how the map is divided up into 12? There is no tribe, there is no land for Levi or for Joseph. Joseph's two sons. each get a portion, but there's no land for the Levites because they are the priests. So that's kind of what part of what's going on. Yeah, Dennis.
Just a question about that. In Genesis, when Jacob blesses his son, does he mention the fact that he was not?
No, I don't think so. You're thinking about that blessing in chapter 50, kind of the prophecies? I don't remember so, but pardon me, but I have not read that recently, so I could be wrong. All right. So Aaron and Aaron's sons are going to serve as priests, and these are his four sons. So now we're going to hear about the garments of the high priest. You shall speak to all the skillful, whom I have filled with the spirit of skill, that they make Aaron's garments to consecrate him for my priesthood. These are the garments that they shall make: a breastplate, an ephod, a robe, a coat of checker work, a turban, and a sash. They shall make me holy garments for Aaron your brother and his sons to serve me as priests. They shall receive gold, blue and purple and scarlet yarns, and fine twined linen. So what does the word consecrate mean again? That's another good Exodus word. Set apart. You could really say the word sanctify is the word consecrate. Sanctify means to make holy. So to consecrate something is to set it apart for a special purpose by God. Chris.
The turban.
The turban.
Is this the same thing as our
As the Middle Eastern turbans. Well, we will see in the pictures which are coming.
Very good.
Can you hit the light stuff? Thank you. All right. Here you see a couple pictures here. I have one with a little bit more detail coming up next, but this is kind of the big picture, as it were. You can see that breastplate in the center there, here, with these many different jewels. This is very, very different from what we kind of see and think about. Let me get to this one maybe a little bit easier to see. You see a frontland, headdress, these stones, which we'll get to. I could use a breast piece of decision sometime. This is that's kind of I'll say a cute translation of the Urim and Thummim. I don't know if you've ever heard that expression before, but the Urim and Thummim are this thing. We don't actually know anything about it other than what's listed here that was used for making decisions, basically. But this is we saw one of these last week when I was trying to smoke you guys out. That's the thurible, and we can see the robe underneath. Here, I think I have one. This is a different depiction.
Like a curious girl.
Curious girl. Yes, exactly. And that is a quote coming up here in chapter 28. That is not made up. Yeah, exactly. Who could make that? So mitre is a hat basically, and then this lacer is a band that goes around it. You can see the clasp, but this is a really nice one because this kind of gives us the whole picture from within chapter 28, what we're looking at right now.
I see crosses all over.
Yeah. What were you seeing stuff?
You're not seeing stuff, I see them too. I don't know. So we'll find out. There's the other half of it, including the curious girdle.
And those are do they wear any kind of headdress, like a beretta, like all that?
Sure, absolutely.
So when did that kind of go away?
16th century, 17th century. I mean, you would find in parts of Europe, in Lutheranism, that some of the more traditional clerical garments, which would include a mitre or a biretta or some of the others are retained, but in many places, especially in America, they disappear almost right away. Let's read a little more, shall we? All right. Okay. And they shall make the ephod of gold, of blue and purple and scarlet yarns, and of fine twined linen, skillfully worked. It shall have 2 shoulder pieces attached to its 2 edges, so that it may be joined together. And the skillfully woven band on it shall be made like it, and be of one piece with it, of gold, blue, and purple, and scarlet yarns, and fine twined linen. I'm going to read here for a little bit so we don't get completely bogged down in the minutia. All right. You shall take 2 onyx stones and engrave on them the names of the sons of Israel, 6 of their names on the one stone, and the names of the remaining 6 on the other stone in the order of their birth. As a jeweler engraves signets, so you shall engrave the 2 stones with the names of the sons of Israel. You shall enclose them in settings of gold and filigree. What's a filigree? I don't know that word.
Elaborate design.
A design? Okay, gold work. And you shall set the 2 stones on the shoulder pieces of the ephod, as stones of remembrance for the sons of Israel. And Aaron shall bear their names before the Lord on his 2 shoulders for remembrance. You shall make settings of gold filigree and 2 chains of pure gold twisted like cords, and you shall attach the cord of chains to the settings. So what the priest is doing is physically bringing the prayers and needs of the people into God's presence. Okay? That's his job. So he brings these before God, and then God delivers his word to the people. So that's kind of what it does. You also really have to see some baptismal imagery in here too. You think of the baptism, right? Receive the sign of the Holy Cross, both on your forehead and on your heart, to mark you as one redeemed by Christ the crucified. This is where you get all those pictures in the book of Revelation about how the names that are in the book of life, all of that kind of talk really flows out of this image of the high priest who brings the people into the presence of God. And that this is done imperfectly here, but it is done perfectly in Christ. So that Christ now bears us to God and bears God to us. It's a pretty cool picture.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I think that's as far as I got.